Welcome to Island Baptist Church. Bill's lesson today is in Luke chapter 11, titled, Hallowed Be Thy Name.
Matthew 6. We're actually in Luke, but we're not going to go there. Matthew 6. We're using Luke as a jumping off place for sort of a mini series, if you could say that. Looking at the Lord's Prayer in Luke chapter 11, one of the disciples asked Jesus, teach us how to pray, which is amazing. You would think this is near the end of Jesus' 3-year earthly ministry. You would think they would already know, right? I mean, why? How, of all the things that you'd think that they would know, that was one of the first things I learned as a kid. John 3:16, and this is how you pray. I mean, that's Sunday school, right? Here we are, grown men with Jesus, and they don't know how to pray. Well, the issue is not that they don't know how. It's just that they realize as they're hearing Jesus, they don't know how to do it right because it's not the way that we're taught. So we're going to see that. But Matthew chapter 6, here we are. Verse 5, we're going to be there all the way down through the end of, as we know it as the Lord's Prayer. And as I said, the disciples asked this simple question, teach us how to pray, and this precipitates an entire monologue on prayer there in Luke 11. We're going to be getting to that. But let's consider what the whole circumstances, the larger context of the Lord's Prayer as we know it, as we call it. Verse 5, chapter 6, verse 5, it says, and when you pray, here's Jesus. This is part of the Sermon on the Mount, just so you know the big picture. When you pray, you are not to be as the hypocrites. So that's good instruction. Don't pray like the hypocrites, which, by the way, is the only way they knew how to pray. And for most of us, a lot of us, in many ways, we pray, as we're going to see as we examine this prayer, we tend to pray like the hypocrites. We tend to. So thus we need this instruction. When you pray, you're not to be like the hypocrites, for they love to stand and pray in the synagogues and on the street corners in order to be seen by men. Is that the purpose of prayer? Truly I say to you, they have their reward in full. But you, when you pray, go into your inner room. When you have shut the door, pray to your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will repay you. When you are praying, do not use meaningless repetitions as the Gentiles do. So you have the hypocrites and the Gentiles. Don't be like them. They suppose that they will be heard because of their many words. Therefore, do not be like them. For your Father knows what you need before you ask Him. And then now we have, classically, the Lord's Prayer. Here we go. Pray then in this way. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we also forgive our debtors. And do not lead us into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. So we have, and notice here, it's important, pray then this way. Jesus doesn't say this is a prayer that you pray. Not that you can't pray this. This is an outline. This is if all you ever do is just simply pray these words, then you're missing a tremendous amount of what Jesus intended. He's teaching them how to pray. This is a principle. This is an outline. These are a diagram that we're to be filling. It's a rough diagram. You're to be filling in with great detail. And so here we are studying this prayer we saw last time as we were together on this. We saw last time how incredibly it is that Jesus would first tell us to say, first pray Father, our Father who art in heaven. That's an amazing thing. I mean, Jesus, we take it for granted because we think that, well, everybody's been that way. No, prior to this, no one ever called God in a personal prayer, Father. Just didn't do it. It didn't happen. You didn't do that. No culture, no religion of any kind has ever done this. So Jesus basically crossed off all cultures, religions, and especially the Jewish religion at that very point. Incredible that he started with that, the Father word, such a title for us. John elaborates here in 1 John chapter 3. Behold, what manner of love the Father has bestowed on us that we should be called children of God. It's something to revel in. Anybody can call him God, ladies and gentlemen. The demons call him God. Again, can you use that word? Sure you can. Every sinner is going to bow their knee and every tongue is going to confess that he is Lord. Can you call him Lord? Certainly you can. There is only a certain group that can call him Father. So do not neglect that word. Behold, what manner of love the Father has bestowed on us, that we should be called the children of God. Therefore, the world does not know us, because it did not know him. Beloved, now we are the children of God. The first thing you need to realize when you come to God is that you're a child of God. He's your Father. It's exactly how he feels about you. This is exactly the way he wants you to feel about him, first and foremost. So we come to him and understand we've been given this distinct privilege of calling the Almighty God, the creator of the universe, Father. That's astounding, I said, as John elaborates here. Effectively, God says to us, when you call on me in prayer, call me Dad. Call me Dad. Wow, talk about set a tempo. Sets a tempo. And that's exactly the intent Jesus is setting here. It's such an endearing title, but the next phrase reminds us that we're not just any more divine because we can call him Father, nor is he any less. We come now to the next phrase in the Lord's Prayer, and it is the first request. First request there's supposed to be, the attitude of our prayer, everything is set upon it, is this request here that says, Hallowed be thy name. We're going to be spending the rest of our time this morning on that phrase. Hallowed be thy name, the first request of all prayers. In other words, that God's name would be hallowed or would be sanctified, or that God's name would be kept holy. My first request, God, is that you would be hallowed above all my needs, all my desires, all my passions, all the things I think needs to happen. Now, a lot of times when we come to God with this list because we're like, I don't know, we're like, we see ourselves as, we're there to brief God. God, I know there's a bunch of stuff you don't know, so I'm here to tell you. There's a bunch of stuff that you don't realize actually should be at the top of your list, right? No. So I'm here to tell you, no, that's not the way Jesus is to start. You start by saying, God, you got the list. You know. So the number one thing on my list is that list, your list, what really matters is that be exalted. Doesn't matter. Ultimately, the most important thing is it doesn't matter what happens to me or those who I love or the world I live in or the nation that I love. None of that matters. What matters the most is that you be hallowed. You be glorified. It's actually a request. A lot of people just see it as a simple statement. It's not. That's inaccurate. As much as calling God Father is directional and pivotal to our prayers, so is this request. My first request, God, is that you be glorified. And it goes on, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. It's all about him. Number one, God, when I'm coming to you, I want you to know it's all about you. It's not about me. That, by the way, may change the list I'm about to give him too. Well, in that context, I probably shouldn't ask you these things. That doesn't agree with the first request. You see how it's said? It's pivotal. It's directional. Prayer isn't just a child to his father, it's also a disciple to his Lord. Most of the time we focus on how prayer works and not so much on the purpose of prayer. What is the purpose of prayer? I'm going to really ask that question. It's a critical question. If you don't really know the purpose, you don't know what you're doing. And the purpose is set here by Jesus. He tells us, first of all, you call him Father. Secondly, you say, I pray your name will be glorified. I pray your name will be hallowed. And we see a prayer as a way to get what we want, right? Here's how you get what you want. You work hard, you get an education, you strive, you stay up late, you get up early, you manipulate circumstances, finances, people, and then when all else fails, you pray, right? Is that how we get what we want? That's what we think. You've missed the purpose of prayer. We've missed it. If we don't understand the purpose, we won't understand the process. And so Jesus is filling in a process, but he starts with this purposeful statement, if you will. We pray, we see prayer as a way to get God to fulfill our dreams and ambitions. And in fact, Jesus never taught us that, nor does the Bible. In fact, I would submit to you that is heresy. It's the way Jesus said the Pharisees and the Gentiles pray. Don't pray like them. They're hypocrites, he says, indeed. Prayer is not really about, is really about coming to the presence of God and submitting to his will. That's the first request. Is that the way you pray? Well, at the very least, we could say you're not following what Jesus said when he said to pray, at the very least. The object of prayer is that God be glorified, first and foremost, period. All petitions, requests, supplications, passions are subject to the glory of God. They're subject. They're secondary at the very most, very least. They're subject to the glory of God. One of the most amazing things, like I said, about these disciples is that they did not know how to pray. So you've been with Jesus for 3 years, and in fact, I think that's what brings it about. I mean, they're just like, you know what, we've been around, every time we've heard this guy pray, he's not praying like the people we were raised with. He's not praying like our rabbis do and like our leaders do. He doesn't pray like them. There was something very different about Jesus' prayer. So that's why they're getting near to the end of his ministry. They're like, you know what, you need to teach us how to pray. And he's already taught on that. Here we are in Matthew. All the way in Luke, we're some year after this event that takes place in Matthew. Jesus had already taught on it, but they're just like, it didn't really stick. You know, every time you read these disciples, you're thinking, how thick can they possibly be about some things? Well, just as thick as you and me. How many times stuff got to run? God's got to run it in front of you for you to get it. Hit you over the head with it, you know, until you get it. These guys are the same way. But they were used to a heretical type of prayer, a man-focused prayer. It's all about me, God, and what you can do for me. And that's why I'm here. Aren't you glad that I came to pray to you? And that is not overstating it, actually. Here's examples we have in the New Testament of how the leaders prayed. The Pharisee stood and prayed thus with himself. A lot of times when we pray, that's all you're doing. Just talking to yourself, man. That's all you're doing. Because why? Because you're not doing it the way it was said. It's heretical. Here's a heretical prayer. God, I thank you that I am not like other men, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, even like this tax collector. Notice, is there anything in here about asking that God be glorified? Or I should say, someone's being glorified here. Who is it? Well, it's that dude, isn't it? That's a heretical prayer. God, I'm so awesome, and I just want to be more awesomer than I've ever been, and so that's why I'm here, and I've got an agenda for you, and I'm going to tell you what you need to do for me. That's a heretical prayer. Might as well be praying with yourself. And does God not hear? I mean, God hears everything, but God's not hearing that in the sense of accepting it. And we just saw this in Matthew 6:5. When you pray, you shall not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues on the corners of the street so they can be seen by men. You might as well be praying to yourself. Who's being glorified? Whose name's being hallowed? Whose name? So when you come to God, first of all, Father. Secondly, you got to decide he's going to be hallowed. It's going to be your name or his. Can't be both. Actually, it can be both. But if you start with you, it'll never be you. But I will tell you, whether you hallow him or not, he will be hallowed. You can either get on the bus or not get on the bus, and that's up to you. But your decision is when you decide, God, I want you to be hallowed, and as he is hallowed, as he is glorified, we can be glorified in him. Follow it? But if I seek my glory, God will still be glorified, and, well, I definitely won't be. In fact, I'll be shown as an example of those who do things the wrong way. Up to me, it's up to you. Again, most amazing. Jesus teaches a prayer style that begins with forgetting yourself. It starts that way. Agrees totally with discipleship. You really want a good title of what the Lord's Prayer is. I don't really like the term Lord's Prayer because it's sort of misleading. Like I said, it's a diagram more than anything. But it's more, if you want to call it anything, it's a disciple's prayer. But because it's not the Lord's Prayer, because he asked us, first of all, part of the Lord's Prayer is that, as we call it, forgive us of our sins. So Jesus was never praying that prayer. He never prayed that prayer. Had no sins to be forgiven. So it's definitely not his prayer. It's definitely our prayer. And it starts with forgetting myself, which is a total agreement with what a disciple is, isn't it? That's why I like the term or title, I didn't come up with it, the disciples' prayer. Then he said to them all, if anyone desires to come after me, let him deny himself. Boy, the whole prayer starts. It's not about me, God. It's about you. It's not that I don't have a list, but that list is subordinate, is subject to the fact that it's about you. I want you to be glorified. I want your name to be hallowed. Got to start that way, ladies and gentlemen, or it won't go right. Only one way for you to be glorified, and that's for God to be glorified. You seek your own glory, I promise you, you will not be. You're going to miss it. On one way on this train, like I said, this bus is leaving. This is the way it works. Hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done. It's about, effectively you're coming to God saying, my will and my agenda don't matter. Your will, your agenda. That's what I'm about. The purpose of prayer is to lift my soul to the Father and seek His honor and glory, not bend Him to my agenda. That's the purpose of prayer. The purpose. Have to understand the purpose. You need to decide, like I said, who's going to be hallowed here? Yours or God's? Whose name? God doesn't exist in heaven to fulfill your dreams and give you what you want. That's not His purpose. It shouldn't be your purpose. Does it make sense? Simple logic. So it's us running up against the will and direction of God that's causing problems in our lives. You're going to have a head-on collision. God's going to win. I said, God is going to be hallowed. You need to decide you're going to get on that train or not, that bus. The first request, because it serves as a warning, and basically on the closet to the door of my prayer life is a warning that says, Bill, it's not about you. It's not about what you want. It's not about what you think. It's not you advising God about anything, telling Him anything He doesn't already know. It's about His glory. So how can I get myself into that mindset as I approach God, my Father, in prayer? That's why this is the first request. That's why it's there. Hallowed be thy name. Not a casual bit of religious routine like some kind of, I don't know, you would say in front of a monarch, long live the king, and then da-da-da-da-da, I'm on with my request. Now, this is not a long live the king statement, guys. It's a very serious request. It is pivotal. It is a goal of life that God's name be glorified, that His name be hallowed. The Jews took it so seriously, the name of God. In fact, they had boiled it down to its basis of terms. They wouldn't even say the name God. Like if you're reading a document today that's written by a Jew, and he's writing about God, when you get to the word God, you'll notice he leaves out a letter, usually O. G, and there'll be a blank space and a gap and a D. They won't even write the name God. They won't even say. I sat next to a rabbi on one of our trips to Israel, and I was asking him about the pronunciation of the name of God because the Jews have so long not pronounced the name of God. We're not really sure how to pronounce it. Did you know that? We say Jehovah or Yahweh. Do you know that we're not really sure that those are accurate? Of all the things you could miss, the spelling of God's name. But there's a reason for that, because the Jews wouldn't say it, ever. Wouldn't spell it. They would give you only the consonants, or they would take only the vowels and apply them to a different word so that you would know you were referring to Him, but actually not using His actual name, because Moses says, what name shall I give Him? God gives Him a name there. Actually, they don't spell it. They just give the consonants. Because they were so serious about the name of God, they wouldn't even pronounce it, they wouldn't even write it, but at the same time, so it was all about the word, G-O-D, Jehovah, J-E-H-O-V-A-H. It was all about the word, but then, so they would honor the title, but then they would run down His reputation everywhere they went. That's exactly opposite of what Jesus is saying in this prayer. It's not about His title. I'm not saying you shouldn't be careful about the use of the word God. Be careful how you use that in a sentence. Be careful how you refer to Him. That is a part of how you honor Him. But I would say it is a small part. Like I said, the Jews would even allow the word to pass over their lips or through their writing pen, but they would run down His reputation everywhere they went. That is not what Jesus is saying here. He's saying it's the reputation of God that we need to be about. God, I'm here so that your reputation would be hallowed in my life and in whatever influence I have. It's your first request. It's your first request. Name is not just a word. It stands for the whole character of a person. When you say the name of somebody, similar to the way in our culture, when someone brings false accusations or destroys someone's reputation, we say, oh, they ruined his name, right? So his name is Bill. So what do they misspell it? B-Y-L-L? No, it's not the name. It's who I am. It's my character. But there is a name to it, right? So because they ruined my character everywhere, every time you hear the name Bill, you associate what they said with the name. You see the difference? You can't separate them. So it is a name, but it's more than the letters. Hallowed be thy name refers to the character, the full summation of who God is. All that he is. Look at these Psalms, for instance, Psalm 9, verse 10. And those who know your name. So what? G-O-D? It's talking about his reputation. It's talking about who he is. It's talking about all that he is. It's talking about his person, his character, his faithfulness, his power, his authority. It's talking about all the summation of all who God is. Not just the title G-O-D or Jehovah or Yahweh. All those who know your name will put their trust in you, for you, Lord, have not forsaken those who seek you. Here's another one, Psalm 7. I will praise the Lord according to his righteousness. I will sing praise to the name of the Lord Most High. Why? Just because I'm saying God? Is that what makes a song good? No, it better represent him. Now we have a war, quote unquote, war in church culture over songs. And it's in many cases, in my opinion, it's about the tune, it's about the music, it's about the instruments and all. I mean, hats off to all these people. But nonetheless, I'm telling you, if the song doesn't represent the character of God, it's not about God. I don't care if you use his name or not. You spell the name correctly. Who cares? You got to know who he is to sing to him correctly. And that's the purpose here. God's name is the sum of all that he is, his personality, his character, his will, his authority, everything. I mean, here's what Jesus is effectively saying. We come to God knowing that he's our Father, not just Creator, not just Lord. He's our Father as our Father who loves to hear from his children. We rush into his presence. We can't do it too often because he says that we should we should pray without ceasing for all kinds of prayer requests, making everything coming to God with all things. He loves that. We come to him knowing that he's gracious. We know that he's merciful. We know that he's kind. We know that he loves us. We know that he's forgiving us, that he loves us fully. We rush into his presence because he loves for us to do that. And the first thing we acknowledge that it isn't about us. That's just plain what Jesus is saying. Come to him knowing who he is. Come to him saying it's about him, not about you. That's the way prayer starts. Is that how it's going for you? Jesus is instructing us on prayer. We stand to learn a lot. We stand to be reminded a lot. I said, I'm probably sitting in a room of people who've been able to quote, I said John 3:16. I also could quote the Lord's Prayer when I was about first grade, fifth grade. In fact, I could say, here, I know you're so impressed with me. Psalm 23, the Lord's Prayer, and John 3:16. I was thinking about this week. I could say all of those before I could read. In fact, one of the ways I learned to read was the Baptist hymnal and those in the Bible. Because I could already say first, second, and last stanza of almost every the popular songs of the Baptist hymnal, because that's the way we sang them. We didn't see the third stanza. I mean, the first, second, and third last stanza. There would be four stanzas. The first and second and the last were for the Baptists, and the fourth one, the third one down was for the Methodists because they need one more line. The Baptists, we don't need that. So we do the first and the last, first, second, and last, because y'all didn't know that, but I'm telling you that's because it's for the Methodists. That one's for the Methodists. So I could sing most first, second, and last stanzas of most of the popular hymns in our hymnal. And I learned to read because I was just like, wow, that's what that word looks like? I learned a visual read. I couldn't sound anything out as a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old. I learned to read because I already knew John 3:16. I knew the Lord's Prayer, and I knew Psalm 23. I began to associate words with the sounds. And so anyway, how interesting is that, right? I'm sitting in a room with people who are in many cases similar to me. You've known this stuff. I mean, I start quoting the Lord's Prayer. It's almost I hear somebody reading the Lord's Prayer. It's almost like you automatically want to start saying it together because that's the way we always heard it, right? And great, that's awesome. But we are so familiar with it, we don't really know it. We don't really understand what Jesus is actually saying. We just say the words like it's some kind of magic words, and they're not magic at all. They are very special and so important, and Jesus is teaching us such a critical issue. Hallowed is a very important word. We use it all the time. Oh, I shouldn't say that. We use it all the time when we use this prayer. We use it nowhere else, except for, of course, on a day like this. Halloween, right? Automatically think of, it's from the Old English, and we don't use it hardly at all in our language. I hardly ever say it. We immediately think, like I said, of something of Halloween. It refers to something being made holy or being separated. The same word is used in the Old Testament for the Ten Commandments, where it talks about the seventh day. You're to hallow the seventh day. Keep it holy. In other words, it's to be a separate type of day for you. Not be like your 6 days you shall work and do all your labor, but on the seventh day you shall rest, for it is a hallowed day to the Lord. It's a special day. It's set apart. It's exalted. It's made to be different. In the same way, that's the same way we're going to do with the reputation and the name of God. The special responsibility of myself and my life as I pray to God today is that He be set apart. Of all the other things that I hope to do today, and I've got a list, and God's not saying don't bring your list, but it's all tempered by that one thing, that God be hallowed in my life. Everybody else may be God haters, but you know what? I'm going to set a different standard here. Set apart. God is set apart in my life. He's going to be honored. You're not honoring, by the way, you're not adding anything to the holiness of God. God doesn't need your help with holiness. He's got it. He's no more, no less holy no matter what you do. Like I said, God's going to be glorified no matter what. You're not adding to the holiness of God. The cherubim over His head are constantly saying, holy, holy, holy. He's just, He is unshakably holy. You're not adding or subtracting anything from it. It's just that He may not be displayed that way in the world you live in. That is a decision you have to make. That is why Jesus says that's your first request. That's your first request. That's the first thing that needs to be on your heart. Of all the things that you're going to say to Him, all the things you're going to ask Him, that's your first request. God, I'm coming recognizing Your will and glory and more important than anything I have on my list. That's the first thing you say. It's got to be in your heart first. Or the rest really is not going to be a prayer. It's not going to be a prayer, according to Jesus. Ahead of all my needs, all my requests, God, I want You to be shown in my life for who You are. That takes precedent over everything else. Jesus illustrates this. Watch. This is Jesus later. This is not far from this place where in Luke 11, where Jesus is asked to teach him in prayer. He's made it all the way to Jerusalem. It's within the last week or so of His life before He's crucified for us, resurrected on our behalf. And Jesus is... He's in the middle of a conversation, but He says this, now my soul is troubled. Why? He knows what's coming. He knows the sin He's going to be paying for, the death that you and I have brought upon ourselves, He's going to put upon Himself. Now, my soul is troubled. Of course it is. Of course it is. What shall I say? What would you say? I don't let this happen, God. Have you ever been looking down a week or down a month or down a year or down a circumstance or a situation or a physical or whatever that you're dealing with, and you know it's coming, you can see it. And what's your request always? Stop it. Please. Don't let it happen. Change it, God. I know that You can. I know that You can fix this. Right? Nothing wrong with that request, by the way. It says make all your requests to God. But understand, Jesus, let's see our model here. The one who taught us how to pray also lived the same way. Now my soul is troubled, and what shall I say? What would you expect? Father, save me from this hour? That's a reasonable request. No. But for this purpose I came to this hour. Father, there it is. Glorify. Hallowed be Your name. What was better? That Jesus got what He wanted, or that the Father be glorified? You see the difference? So forgive me, but are you better than Jesus? Your agenda, what you want, what'll make you happy, what'll make you feel better. And hear me, it's not that God the Father isn't interested in those things. just understand, there is something more important. There is something more important. If all we do is seek our glory, you'll never get it. God will always be glorified, but if you'll hitch yourself to the train of God's glory, which is what Jesus is doing right here, that God be glorified. Was it better? Was it better for the world? Was it better for God? Was it better for all eternity that Jesus went to the cross, or that God would answer requests that he not go to the cross? That God be glorified, or that Jesus just get what he wants? And you're better than Jesus? Your requests are better than his? Your needs are greater than his? I mean, you talk about a guy who had a right to say, you know what, I don't deserve this. Can you really say about it anything you're going through? I don't want to have a conversation with God about the stuff that I deserve. I don't know about you. I don't recommend it. Jesus deserved none of it. He had a right to make that request. Totally understandable. He did not. Because why? Because there's one thing more important than any personal request, and that's that God be glorified. Everything submits and is subject to the glory of God. That's why it's the first request. Before I talk to him about my bread, and we're going to look at all these elements of this prayer. Before I talk to him about my bread, talk to him about my sin, talk to him about my life, I desire that your glory, God, be displayed. It's the greatest request that you can make. That's why it's first. I'm going to ask if you would bow your heads and close your eyes with me as we consider what the Father has shown us here. Father, we thank you that you have given us instruction in prayer. We need it. I need it. I need to be reined in. We need to be reined in. We get off. We get selfish. We're seeking what we think is best, but we really don't know what's best. We know what's best is that you be glorified, that your name be exalted. All these things that are happening to us and around us, they'll be forgotten in 10 years, 5 years. It'll be over. But your glory, your name, it'll never be forgotten. Your reputation, Lord, is what matters more than anything else. We want you to be glorified here in our lives, in our church. We ask that your name would be glorified. Thank you, God, for this teaching. Help us to learn it, we ask. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thanks for visiting. Find us at www.islandbaptistchurch.org.